Welcome to the More Movement Crew podcast. I'm your host, Kanina Porter, and this is episode 8. So, 2 weeks ago, I did a podcast called Take Several Seats, where I just talked about the importance of resting, self-care, and just stopping all of the madness. So I feel like that was kind of profound because now we are at this place in the world where this coronavirus has just taken to a whole nother level. And so that was so timely that I posted that because now we're faced with the reality that we may actually have to sit down and we have to stop all activity. And so I want to talk about this episode. What does that mean? And also, what does it look like when we continue to just walk in fear and worry and anxiety? So thank you for tuning in to this episode. I ask that you subscribe if you are watching on YouTube, and like if you are listening on Anchor, and share if you are on Facebook, because I really, really want this message to get out to people. So I totally didn't have, this plan. This was just something I really just been praying about it. I really have been asking God for wisdom. And that's really what I'm doing this season, is just being led. And so when you get a vlog, when you get an interview, when you get me talking, it's just what I feel like God is leading me to say and to do. And so I'm switching it up. So you just never know what you're going to get each week. But this entire situation really bothers me. For a number of reasons. People are getting sick, people are panicking, people are worried, and it's stopping a lot of things. It's putting people at risk. It's people are losing money. So it is definitely cause for concern. But here is my thing. If you are a believer, if you are someone who has a relationship with God, then you should not be one of those people running around with your head cut off, panicking and worrying. And here is why. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in this episode, so stick around.
The More Movement Crew.
Okay, we're back. So welcome to the show, and I'm just going to get right in it. I'm just going to get right in it because I really felt led to just share this. I know what it is to worry and to operate in fear. Fear is something that everybody experiences. People have all kinds of fears. I personally will just come out and tell you what my fears are. My fears are heights, like large bodies of water, just like overall, just swimming, all of that just kind of scares me because and I think that I know that my fears are all connected with my ability or lack thereof to control things. So you have this mass body of water and you have just little me, and I can't control kind of what happens. Like in swimming, you can control kind of, but it's just so huge. It's so overwhelming. So I just feel like I can't control it. And then heights, I feel like I'm overwhelmed by how high I am. And if I fall, then I'm not going to be able to control it. And so those things are my fears. And so I really am working on those things. I'm really looking inward to see if, God can really help me to overcome those things. And I know he can. I just have to be willing to step out and do it. And so when we talk about fear, I just want to talk about some of the things that fear does to us. Fear keeps us from thinking clearly. Fear we make mistakes when we're fearful. Fear stifles us. Fear imprisons us. And worry and doubt and all of those things physically are harmful to your body, but it's also harmful to you spiritually, and it's harmful to those around you when you're operating and making decisions and behaving in fear. And so I just want to speak to that today in this episode. I just felt led to speak to it, this year, I want to be more vocal about what I believe. I want to speak particularly to those who are struggling with certain things. And, this one also speaks to believers because we have to start operating differently, right? We have to move differently, right? We are kingdom people. We don't think the same way everyone thinks. We don't move the same way everyone moves. And so we have to start behaving that way. So the first thing that really, really concerned me with this coronavirus news and the spreading of the virus is that social media, right? Social media has its problems. Social media can be a positive thing, can be a negative thing, and it is all about how you use it. But I have a particular issue with people of God who continue to add to the hysteria, right? Posting every news article that comes out, right? Posting every update about the virus that comes out, sharing things about the virus. Like, stop adding to the hysteria. It's heightening this worry and fear. And for those who aren't believers, it's just increasingly making them more and more worried. Because for us, you should be able to feel like God is my anchor, God is my protection, and I'm not going to worry. But for those who don't have that, seeing someone constantly posting about it just heightens their fear. And so we don't want to contribute to that. And I think that was the first thing I wanted to talk about, is just how we add to the problem, right? Instead of posting, you guys, we're not gonna worry about this thing. We're not gonna fear. If anybody is worried, let me know. I'll talk you through it. If anybody needs help, let me know. So instead of us adding to the timeline of craziness, we are contributing to it in a negative way. And I think that is a problem that we have to do. We have to flood social media with positivity. We have to flood social media with anti-chaos and anti-craziness, because that creates this sense of panic. Now, I would like to say I'm pretty solid in what I believe, but I had to admit, when I logged into Facebook and I thought, this is not that big of a deal, people just blowing it out of proportion, it'll all blow over, da, da, da. And then I start to scroll, and people were put more and more articles out. People were putting more and more research that this person said and that person said. And then it just became out of control. And then I started to feel like, well, maybe I should panic. Well, maybe I should go get this or go buy this, or maybe I should not leave my house. Or then I started to think of that way, and I was like, wait a minute. Social media is getting to you. So I just said, hey, y'all, I got to log out. It's a wrap. I'm done. It's over, because I don't want to go there. Right. And so when I think about personally what's going on right now, I have certain emotions. I am really, really concerned for the people who can really be affected by it. Our elderly and people who have already pre-diagnosed illnesses. And myself being included, I would be one of those people that probably should be fearful, but I'm not. Because God helped me to overcome some of the hardest things in my life, that I'm not really worried about the coronavirus. And so if God wants me to be here, he wants me to continue to live, then I'm going to continue to live, but I'm not going to walk in fear. Like, I said goodbye to that when it comes to sickness a long time ago. And so I am not concerned as somebody who has lupus, who has to watch her immune system, but people who are healthy, should definitely not be as concerned. Take the precautions, right? Use wisdom. Wash your hands. You should be doing that anyway. There's things you should be doing anyway, but just do maybe a little extra cleaning. Being extra cautious can never hurt you. But I just really think that we have to stop and think and be logical about what's going on around us and not add to the chaos, right? You never, ever can fix something by worrying and by panicking and having anxiety over it. You never can do it. So in order for us to really, really be able to change and to help people and to not put ourselves in a worse place than we are, or position that we are, we have to be thinking clearly. We have to be thinking clearly. We can't run to the store and buy up all the sanitizer and buy up all of the disinfectant. Like, I literally tried to go get one can of disinfectant spray, and the entire shelves were wiped out. That was wipes, spray, small antibacterial, hand sanitizers, everything was gone. And there's a note that says out of stock, high demand, or whatever, in like every store I went to. And so this should not be. This absolutely should not be. I believe that you should do everything to be cautious about the virus, and you should use wisdom. But this is crazy. And so just operating in fear, how we respond, how we react to things. We have to stop. We have to think. And when we respond that way, there are people watching us respond that way. Worrying and fear brings out the ugliness in people. And then people become selfish, like, I'm going to buy all the sanitizers. Like, and so you're acting and behaving in a way that you shouldn't be. And it doesn't help anybody, right? And so we have got to stop and to reset at this time and to just be prayerful. Like, for those of you who are prayer warriors, those of you who pray and believers who pray, we have to be more apt to pray than to post. That's a whole hashtag, right? Pray before you post, right? We need to be praying instead of posting, whatever the hashtag is. But that's what we have to do, because we don't realize how we contribute and perpetuate the hysteria that goes on. And so that was really what I wanted to just talk about in this episode. And I also want to talk about some things that we can do at this time where people are fearful and people are just worried, right? So there's a saying that when a crisis happens, poor people, the poor people get sick, but black people get the flu. So when we're looking at things shutting down, schools closing, we have to think about the people that really, really need help at this time and are going to need help. A single mother who has kids and all her kids are at home. She got to go to work, right? How can her village help her? How can her family help her, right? People who may lose hours, and so their paycheck's going to be short. Can you slide somebody a 20 and say, hey, this is for your groceries. I know, your money might be short. Or, hey, do you need a ride? Or can I pick up your kids for you if you know them well? Something. What can we do as people, as humanity, to make sure that the people around us are straight? And that is like from such a deep place. I just feel like that would really change the way that all of this turns out. If people would just come together and be there for one another and support one another instead of looking at each other like they all have the coronavirus, right? And let's start looking at credible sources, facts, and look at it from the context of the bigger picture, right? Let's look at how many cases there are versus how many people there are, right? And let's look at how that affects us. And does this require me to be moving in panic, right? And are the people who currently have it in my region, are they stable? Are they okay, right? Let's look at those things. Let's really be aware and think about that. And just think about other people. I understand sometimes you're just like, oh, I really don't want to be around other people. I don't really want to put my family at risk, but you can help out in other ways. You don't necessarily have to be all in their house or they all in your house breathing your oxygen. Like, there are things you can do. So you just have to just really be prayerful about that. Like, we are living in a time, you guys, where we have to really start thinking about what's most important, right? We have to really start thinking about the things that we are called and purposed to do. And in times like this, that is all that matters, right? Your job doesn't matter. How much money you make doesn't matter. How cute you are doesn't matter, right? You beefing with this person doesn't matter, right? You doing what you are called and purposed to do. And for us who are children of God, it is sharing with people. It is sharing the gospel with people. It is letting people know that there is a hope that's eternal, right? There's a hope that never, ever changes, right? And it never dies. God will never leave you, never forsake you. And I feel that today. I so feel that in my spirit. And that is coming from somebody who was sick and who almost did not make it, right? I had to cling to that. And so if I could give what I had and the power that I had in that moment to somebody else who needs it, then that's what I need to do. And so that is why I decided to create this podcast and to record this podcast this Thursday, right? I'm getting ready to drop it tomorrow because I really felt like somebody needs to hear this. It's so important. And so I'm not going to, drag this podcast out super long. But those are just the things that were on my heart. As we move forward, we don't know when the schools are going to close, if they're going to close. The March Madness is going to happen, but no fans. Like, so NBA's playing. It's just like no fans can come. It's craziness. It's absolute craziness. But at the end of the day, are we worried about the people around us, and are we worried about being healthy and really addressing and kind of centralizing the virus and making sure that we are not getting sick, or are we worried about a basketball game? Like, let's really start to prioritize and think about what's important. Do you probably need to take a day or two to sit down and reset? Yeah, I'm sure we all do. Need to take a moment to just kind of sit back, reset, and think about what we need to do. Can we work from home? Some of us can. Some of us cannot. But for those of you who can, thank God, work from home and keep it moving. But we really, as a people, have to start thinking for ourselves. And we have to really look into the facts. And we can't be swayed so easily. Right? We have to be able to think with sound mind and sound judgment. It's so important in times like this. And so I am going to just close this podcast by just saying that we've got to trust that God is going to do exactly what he says, and that is to protect us if we trust in him. And so I'm going to close with this scripture, and I pray that you heard what I said. If you are a believer, then you really should be able to relate. And if you're not a believer and you're listening to this and you're like, well, my relationship with God isn't that strong, or I don't really believe in God. Well, I hope that you did listen to what I have to say, and I hope that you are considering really seeking out a relationship with God, because you're going to need it to be able to stay stable-minded and to stay strong in your thinking, because there are so many influences pulling us here one day, pulling us there, distracting us. The news is trying to get us to look this way when they're doing this, or this is happening in another country, but we need them to look over here. And so there is deception all around us. And how do we determine what's real? How do we discover what's real? But for me, how I discover what's real is through my relationship with God. He reminds me of what's real. His word reveals what's real. Right? All of this is nothing new to God. None of this it's not nothing brand new, right? It's all been spoke about, preached about before. And so we just have to be mindful of that. Thank you for listening to this episode. I pray that it encouraged you. I pray that you are not fearful going into this uncertain time that we are seeing in our nation. And so I want you, if you're listening to this podcast, I want you to read Deuteronomy 31:6. And that just talks about us being strong and courageous and not fearing, for God is with us and he will never leave us nor forsake us. And so if you need something to cling on to, Deuteronomy 31:6 should do the job. I pray that you are blessed. And if you like this episode or if you were encouraged by this episode, let me know. And until we meet again, be blessed.